Hey everyone, my name is Pauline. This is the Know the Coin show by ChangeNOW, and today I have a very special guest, Benjamin Soong, Managing Director and Head of APAC in Lger. Hey there, Ben. How are you doing?
Hi, Pauline. Thanks a lot for having me. It's an honor to be on your show and excited to kind of share my perspective about the crypto space.
Thank you. Could you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So I actually come from not a very sexy profession. I'm an accountant by background. So I started my career at KPMG, then moved over to the finance side, working at the advisory business for Deloitte in corporate finance and transaction advisory. And then prior to entering the crypto space, I spent 11 years basically running financial market data businesses from Toronto to New York to Toronto to Hong Kong, to Tokyo, Shanghai, back to Toronto. And it was 2015, 2016 when I first started getting exposed to blockchain, working on a couple of special projects at my last company. And very quickly, I kind of, it really piqued my interest, and I started learning more and more. Decided to kind of, take the plunge and invest in Bitcoin in 2017, 2018. And by 2018, I just told myself, you know what, I got to move to the dark side and really be full-fledged in this space.
And that's been a really impressive journey, both distance-wise, since you've traveled a lot, and career-wise, since you worked at Deloitte and S&P, and those are pretty big names right now. But how did you end up at your current job at Lger?
Sure. So I was using the Lger Nano S at the time to secure my own Bitcoin. But what happened was one day I actually got a call from a recruiter, and he started giving me the profile of a blockchain security company, and was telling me how they're looking to expand their business globally. They had just raised a round B of 75 million in January 2018, and very quickly I just kind of knew that company was Lger. So I said, "Hey, you're talking to me about Lger?" And he was like, "Oh wow, you know the company already?" I was like, "Yeah, I use their products." So it was a great opportunity, because in my last company at S&P, even though S&P is like a big, Fortune 500, I had joined actually through a startup arm of S&P. And when I look back at my career at that time, joining a startup and kind of growing it, maybe not from 0 to 1, but from taking it from 1 to 100, that was one of the most kind of, I would say, rewarding experiences I had. And so when Lger came knocking on the door, it was basically an opportunity to do the exact same thing again in a space that I was very interested, very passionate about, with an amazing management team. So for me, it was a very easy decision to join Lger.
But how do you, as head of Asia Pacific right now, how do you feel about Ledger's recent expansion onto the Asian market? Have you been able to achieve any solid breakthroughs in sales or any partnerships in the East? I'm not like asking for names, maybe something process-wise.
Yeah, sure. So we went into Asia, last year with kind of a bit of a hypothesis of where we thought the market was going, what the market growth was, right? And I would say that there's areas that we were dead on, and then there was areas that we were off, and we've kind of, adjusted accordingly. So, going into 2018, the thinking was that it was kind of the year where we're going to see the institutional market really grow. So we're going to see more crypto hedge funds, we're going to see more crypto VCs, more exchanges. And I think to a certain extent, from a global perspective, that's basically what happened. Now, when we look at globally, each market kind of has its own unique, I think, identity. So when you look at the US, hands down, you definitely have some of the biggest crypto hedge funds out there, well over $1 billion in assets. When you look at APAC, it's actually less about kind of like billion-dollar hedge funds, but APAC is actually where 70% of the biggest crypto exchanges are located. So when we think about our business and Ledger's business for our institutional business, less so the Nano X hardware wallet business for the Vault, is very much about assets under management. So I think what kind of shifted for us was that in APAC, our focus very quickly became targeting exchanges and also custodians as well, because I come from a traditional finance background, and one of the things that I think from experience I can say is for the crypto space to really become big, it's not going to just happen through retail investors like ourselves. We're going to see kind of people like Franklin Templeton, BlackRock, some very traditional fund houses starting to say, okay, of the 1 trillion or 2 trillion assets that I manage, I'm going to move 1 or 2% into crypto. That's going to really move the needle. That's what's going to take Bitcoin over like $1 trillion. Take crypto into 10 trillion, right? So so to me, in order to engage and do business with that side of the world, there's a lot of foundation building that we need to think about. And I think about like, what are some of the pillars we need? So I look at custody, that's a big part. And when it comes to custody, there's the operational service side, but there's also the technology and security side, which for crypto is much more complex than stocks and bonds. Then there's the insurance side, which we talk a lot about. There's the fund administration, there's the tax, there's the audit and accounting. So so these are all kind of different pillars that need to kind of fall into place. So very quickly, as we spend time out here in Asia Pacific, what we realize is we're not going to be able to do everything ourselves to enable that next wave of growth. It's going to be something that's kind of done in conjunction with all these partners. So over the last, I would say, past year, we've been spending a lot of time engaging with big accounting firms, with large custodians, banks, and knowledge sharing, and also working along with the regulators to help share our insight and our expertise with the regulators, so that you have regulation coming into this space. And once all that kind of happens, we see that as kind of at least that first domino that has to fall in order for some of the more traditional money to come into this space.
Okay, so basically that's like a major adoption accelerator of sorts, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But have there been any problems with engaging with regulators? I mean, from what I know, for example, in China, there have been some obstacles in front of like crypto coming in.
Yeah, I think in China, to be honest, we've kind of stayed away from engaging regulators and not doing as much business out in China, just because the challenge with a country like China is because there's capital controls, and crypto is a way to basically move money out of the country by kind of getting around the capital controls. But when I say like regulators, we've definitely been engaging them kind of in Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, and various other markets. And I would say overall, like there's support. There's definitely support from the regulators to do business in this space. It's just, this is such a unique asset class that it's taking time even for the regulators to kind of wrap their heads around the technology. And one example I would give you is when I think about what Lger does, we're a tech provider, is everybody always talks about cold and hot wallets, right? And in the most basic way of defining them, people say, okay, cold is offline, hot is online. And then there's kind of just that generalization is hot is bad, cold is better. But the way we see it is, maybe it's not about looking at cold and hot when it comes to technology or coming to like wallet and protection, but maybe it's about moving away from that, but just thinking about security as overall. Security to us at Lger is not about cold or hot wallets. It's actually about creating a process that is so complex that you actually deter people from trying to steal from you. Because no one can ever say that security is 100%. It's always 100% until something goes wrong. So we just try to make it so complex that you feel like you're Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, when he breaks into that kind of like facility. And if you make it that complex, then I think that's what good security is.
So basically what you're saying, you can't even crawl in through the vents.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So when we met at the Asia Blockchain Summit, you have talked about, like, as you've previously mentioned, about Ledger's transformation from just a device line brand like the Nano wallets into an entire technology, if you call it that. If you could call it that, like Intel stickers on laptops, but for crypto. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So when you look at Ledger's business, we kind of have three main business lines today. So we have the hardware wallet, the Nano S, Nano X. We then have the Ledger Vault, which is the institutional enterprise solution. And then our third division of our business is the IoT. And I guess IoT, Internet of Things, means a lot of different things to different people. But from our perspective, actually, all three businesses share a common backbone, which is the use of secure hardware whether it's chips or like HSM, and also using our proprietary operating system, which is common across all three, which is called BOLOS, so Blockchain Open Ledger Operating System. So the operating system that we've developed is actually something that our CTO started developing back in 2004. And it's not because our CTO, Nicolas Bacca, knew that blockchain or Bitcoin was going to exist in 2004, but the age of the internet actually triggered an alarm bell for him to say, at some point, privacy and information is not going to be very secure. If you think about the way we store passwords today, it's kind of like ABC123, change it every 3 months. Now maybe add an exclamation mark and an asterisk, and that's the way we do it. And Nicola felt that there was going to be a way bigger need for how information in general is protected. So he started developing an operating system that allows machines to machines or hardware to hardware being able to communicate. And so when he finally came across Bitcoin and blockchain, what he realized very quickly was what he's been building over the past decade is essentially in line with kind of the principles of kind of cryptography and what blockchain technology is all about. So today, what we've built is actually something that is beyond just about cryptocurrencies, but something that longer term we feel can help secure endpoint to endpoint. So Pauline, one example I gave you was potentially using our secure chips with our operating system inside, let's say, a car. All cars now have computers, and when you buy a secondhand car today, the first questions you ask yourself is like, oh, how do I know this is not a lemon? How do I know the odometer reading is correct? How do I know that these maintenances have actually even been done? Well, if you have our chip inside the computer and let's say there's a blockchain protocol that is for collecting automotive data, now all of a sudden you have a secure channel between the car back to the blockchain, ensuring that the data integrity is there. So as the car drives, the odometer reading is being broadcasted onto the blockchain. When a service maintenance record or oil change is done, it's being broadcasted onto the blockchain. So anybody can query the blockchain, which is kind of open to the public, and they're now able to verify kind of the integrity of the car. And there's going to be a lot of use cases in addition to that, because insurance companies may be interested in that information, because I'm able to now help forecast, insurance policies, premiums. If I'm a automotive parts manufacturer, I can also forecast supply demands and all that. So it's actually quite interesting how data integrity, leveraging blockchain technology is going to be something that can be quite transformational. So at Ledger, what we're hoping to aspire to be is longer term, we're securing endpoints, whether it's your phone to your TV, your computer to your car, as long as it's machine to machines, and we're going to see more and more of that. I think it's gonna and that's where I made that kind of reference to, we may end up being like an Intel sticker on different types of devices and products.
Okay, that's really awesome, and that's really interesting to listen to, because when you normally talk with more or less crypto related companies, they are really crypto oriented, but Ledger is sort of steering away from crypto and is dealing with managing overall security information with the blockchain. And that's just, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. But have you managed to already nail any partners who would be ready to put Ledger stickers on their products among other things, like aside from the automotive industry, not names again, but overall processes?
Yeah, so we're working it with like a lot of different industries. Like one that's kind of publicly announced, so we're comfortable in saying, is Engie. So they're one of the biggest utility companies in France, and what they're hoping to do is actually use our technology to capture the production and tokenize green energy. So we actually have a device called an Oracle that gets basically kind of connected to the smart meters of, let's say, a solar farm. And as the solar panels are collecting the energy, whether it's turbines or from sunlight, there's a light inside the Oracle that starts blinking, and the pulsing rate basically allows us to calculate the energy production and then we can broadcast that energy production onto the blockchain. So, so this is something that is actually in production, is not a proof of concept that that is going to be rolled out in the next 6 to 12 months. So, so these are some of the very practical use cases. I can tell you, we're also engaged with companies that are using our technology to capture and transmit information about like water purity as well too. So at the end of the day, the use case, I think, of the Ledger technology, it's going to be kind of very blockchain, you know, at the heart of it. But in terms of like the industries that we can potentially do business with, it's a very wide range. And at the end, like there's still ultimately a crypto play that's tied to it, because in a lot of cases for these public blockchains, like when I mentioned kind of like the energy tokens can still be traded, so they will still have kind of a monetary value. So securing the energy tokens and the private keys is still something very core to what our business is today, and also for the long-term future.
Okay, so basically it's a BaaS, but with hardware support.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about the wallets themselves, because still mostly when people hear the Ledger name, they're like, oh, is that the wallet, the little thing that like looks like a flash drive? But how is Ledger different from other hardware crypto wallets? For example, Trezor, Cool Wallet. I know there's Kobo Wallet also out there, and other things.
Yeah, so I would say first is our focus is less around kind of just cosmetics or kind of fun factor. Our focus is underlying security. So the biggest differentiator would be kind of our use of secure chips. So we use chips from SD Micro. So when we always talk about secure elements, right? And for the general audience that don't know secure elements, look at your credit cards or your debit cards. You see that chip on it, right? So when you look at the history of secure elements, the secure people can commit credit card fraud by capturing your personal information, but people actually cannot extract information from the secure elements. So that's one of the strengths of secure elements, and this pin and chip technology has existed for you know, decades, right? So it's proven. There's a lot of certification, hack testing done upon them. So it's not kind of a new technology that no one's kind of heard about. So with all of the hardware and all of the technology that we use secure elements to ensure that when people kind of, even if they get physical access to a ledger, that they are unable to extract information from it. And when you look at all the different wallets that you mentioned earlier, I would say that is one of the biggest differentiating factors, is the fact that the types of hardware and chips we use is very different. And the ability to install the operating system that we have proprietary as Bolos is also quite challenging. So our entire engineering team comes from that pin and chip technology. Their expertise has been kind of dealing with that type of hardware. And our competitors, a lot of them, the types of chips they're using are pretty standard chips that you would find inside a toaster oven, a microwave. So it helps kind of operate the processing side, but from a security layer perspective, it will definitely never be as strong as kind of a secure element. And it's not something where our competitors can easily just go and say, okay, let's buy some secure elements and start operating with them. Because the other thing that I think is very unique to Ledger is when you look at our engineering team, they all came from kind of the big German and French pin and chip security companies. So the relationships we have, we work with these hardware chip providers as kind of partners, because not only do they supply us with their chips, we actually also hack, and we hack and we try to attack the hardware that we purchase. And there's been cases where we've found vulnerabilities, and we've actually worked closely with these partners of ours to patch these security flaws as well.
Okay, awesome. So if I were to take, for example, the Nano X apart, I would find the chip that looks like something on my credit card, right?
Yep. Correct.
Okay. Really, really cool. But with regard to the Bolos operating system, it consists of apps. So several, I mean, each coin is supported with a separate app. And how did the idea of such of such a design come into the company? Is that a matter of like purely cosmetics or utility, or does it actually play into security as well?
Yeah, so no, that's a really good question, and I'll try my best with my knowledge of being a non-engineer to answer that. But I think a big part of it was when you're building an operating system and you're building apps, to commingle different coins all under the same exact same infrastructure. What happens is, as you add new coins, you could potentially open up vulnerabilities to all the other coins that you have previously added. So the thinking of actually separating them as individual apps, it was actually deliberate. So it wasn't because we couldn't find a way to consolidate it, but what we didn't want to have is when we add a new coin, and we're adding that app onto your hardware wallet, is that it would create a vulnerability impacting kind of a chain reaction effect. So it was actually a very deliberate step that we wanted to kind of have that level of segregation when we designed the Nano S and the operating system as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so basically that means that if someone were to hypothetically hack your ledger and steal your Bitcoin, for example, they would only steal my Bitcoin and not the other cryptos I have on the ledger.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. But how does the team pick which coins to support apps-wise and at what level? Like, for example, Bitcoin, Ether, Litecoin, and lots of other cryptos are supported in Ledger natively. Like, I can manage them from Ledger Live. While Teases, for example, is supported only through third-party wallets. How is that choice made?
Yeah, and you know what? That's a tough question, because I'll be honest. Like coin integration is a constant topic at Ledger, even internally.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest challenge with coin integration is if you look at the top 10 coins today versus the top 10 coins 24 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the exception of maybe Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe XRP, like the list keeps on kind of flip-flopping and moving around, and new entrants come in, some fall off. So for us, it's always a bit of a moving target. But what we do try to do is we're trying to be client-centric. So at the end of the day, we do pull what our clients are requesting.
Mm-hmm.
We do see like where the demand is coming from, and unfortunately, sometimes what the demand is in March, it may change by the time it's in June. But we try our best to kind of stick to that type of roadmap. And so the other thing is integrating coins is a much more complex process, as a lot of people kind of think. Like, for example, for us to integrate Monero, it took a lot longer than some of the other coins. So for us, the one thing that we do kind of stand by is we may sometimes say, okay, we'll be able to integrate this coin within 3 months, but it may end up taking 9 or even 15. And if that is the case, instead of kind of pushing out something that we think is potentially 80-90% there, we rather kind of go back to our clients and say, hey, do you know what? We're sorry. We misforecast the timing, but it's going to take longer. But we want to make sure what we put out there is something that's going to give you security, which is what you're paying for and what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've had that question because I personally have a little bit of BTC, and when Tezos was like really hyped in the winter, I think I bought some. And when I was transferring my funds from a live wallet that I had to my Ledger, I ran into like a little issue that I would have to run Ledger Live for Bitcoin and then install like a third-party wallet, for example, Tezbox for Teases,
Yeah.
and that was kind of like cluttery. But now I understand that it's not that easy, really.
Yeah, and I think ultimately our goal is, once hopefully the crypto market settles down a bit, is for us to be able to consistently be supporting at least the top 20 to 30 coins in the marketplace. We get a lot of demand, especially from VC funds who are investing in new protocols, to have us kind of support them. And and sometimes we try our best to support as many as we can. But I give you one example is Cosmos Atom. That was one that's been requested by a couple of our clients, and until April 28th, when it listed on Binance, you look at CoinMarketCap, there's not much volume. Like it's not listed, and right after it's listed, within a week, they're kind of top 15.
Mm-hmm.
So we do kind of like coin integration prioritization process, something we consistently kind of continue to review. And unfortunately, there's so many different coins out there, but we are constantly trying to try our best to kind of integrate as many as we can. Now, when it comes to things like ERC20, where it's more of a relatively standard protocol, those
Mm-hmm.
are easy for us to kind of just switch on, with a matter of like hours.
Okay. Yeah, got it. And again, back to the apps. I know that right now on Bolos, there are several apps that are not crypto asset related, like the Windows Hello one, where you can plug your ledger into your laptop and use it as a login device, and also some other stuff. But are there any non-asset, like more non-asset ledger apps that are currently on the way?
That I would say is so Nicola, who heads up kind of our R&D and innovation, he is constantly looking at different use cases of how Bolos can be applied.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we've even talked about Bolos maybe being something that will be licensed to third parties.
Mm-hmm.
We ultimately want Bolos to be an operating system that people can build on top of.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the very typical request would be coming from a lot of banks. A lot of banks, I think, are not looking for anything that's just kind of like off the shelf. They're looking for something relatively customized. We've been even requested by a bank that uses RSA tokens, where they wanted Bolos running on the RSA token. So I think we're going to see more and more use cases of
Mm-hmm.
how Bolos can be kind of applied. And it may not, to be honest, it doesn't necessarily have to be crypto or blockchain related. It
Mm-hmm.
could just be kind of security related at the end of the day. So I think as Ledger becomes a more mature company, our brand becomes more established out there, people start understanding our technology better, is
Mm-hmm.
that we're going to see some more very traditional use cases and adoption of Bolos.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I guess it wouldn't really make any sense to make Bolos open source because this is patented technology, or at
Um,
least they think it's patented by Ledger, right?
yeah, I think it will be, and this is probably maybe a bit of a immature or premature comment, but I would say that like I wouldn't say that it's I mean, it's probably not gonna be full open source,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's gonna be partial open source. I think there's certain security components that
Mm-hmm.
need to be, be kind of closed. But the ability for people to build applications on top of Bolos is definitely something that we want to happen longer term.
Mm-hmm. So, and in order to do that, you would have to at least make some part of the code open source so that people
Yeah,
know what they're working with and stuff like that. Okay.
yeah.
And the Nano X wallet that came out pretty recently, I think last year, I've seen it become a hit. There was so many buzz around it, but does Ledger have any plans on releasing any new wallet models, like the hardware wallets for the average consumer?
Yeah, I think at the moment, we look at the Nano S and the Nano X as something that kind of, services what the market requires. We've definitely had a lot of inquiries from potential partners to see how they can embed our hardware wallet technology into other devices. So
Mhm.
one example would be like cell phones.
Mhm.
So today, a lot of cell phones are still running more of a kind of like a software wallet, but we have had discussions, and I can't name names, but hopefully in the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to start seeing, probably more 12 months, start seeing some things come onto the market, which
Mhm.
has kind of Ledger hardware technology embedded inside other types of hardware. Because I think what's important at the end for the blockchain and crypto space is really we're more what we call blockchain crypto enthusiasts, but for the general public, I think the use case of it has to come seamless. So when people start using something and not even realizing and saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, where's my Ledger wallet?" but they just start using something, I think that's kind of key towards mass adoption. So I think improving that user experience and making it seamless is a very critical step, not just for Ledger, but I think overall for this crypto space.
Well, basically, what you mean is carrying like a tiny ledger wallet around would be less convenient than, for example, having a ledger chip in your phone, which does essentially the same thing, but it doesn't have to be two separate devices.
I think it depends. Some people may prefer to still have it on a like for example, for me, I still prefer to have it on a hardware wallet.
Mm-hmm.
I like kind of having things kind of segregated, because I may not carry my Nano X around with me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I may have it stored, in a safe. I may have stored it in a safe at home.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have it on my hardware wallet, in, let's say, my phone, then the physical risk then kind of increases to a certain extent, right? So I think at the end of the day, hardware wallets are going to have different types of use cases,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I would put it this way: is if I have a ton of Bitcoin, I'm probably going to put it with a custodian that is
Mm-hmm.
using Ledger's enterprise solution technology. So that's like us putting our money in a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a little bit, I might keep, I might keep some money in my closet or in my little deposit box I have at home. And then you look at what you have on your hardware wallet on your phone is maybe what you need more from a day-to-day perspective. So so I think people will still kind of break up how they kind of hold their denominations of what they're holding at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I guess it does make sense. So if you carry around, for example, you have 15 BTC and you store it on a wallet in your phone, and I guess when you lose it, it's going to be like a huge bummer. For example,
Yeah,
if you have just a little bit that you carry around on your phone for daily payments, if you are paying with crypto, for example, for your groceries or for bus rides and whatever, it's safe. But if you're carrying around that big sum of money in your, essentially in what is your pocket, it's kind of reckless, I think.
yeah, it's like I would use the analogy as today, would you walk around with 150,000 cash in your wallet or in
Yeah,
your bag?
exactly.
But we probably would walk around with like $200. So if it's like 0.02 BTC,
Hmm.
then we're okay with that.
Hmm. Um, but do you have any advice for people who have the Nano X and Nano S wallets on possibly like any storage solutions? So don't carry it on your neck or keep it in your deposit box or whatever. What's best in your opinion?
Yeah, I think what I would suggest is for myself, I use multiple nanos,
Hmm.
because the one thing that I think at the end, any type of wallet that you have, is what you can't prevent is physical risk.
Hmm.
um, so when things are concentrated, it becomes more targeted.
Hmm.
So if I had 1,000 BTC today, I would never put it inside one Nano X, even if I could hold 1,000 BTC in it, because then I kind of have one point of concentration risk, right?
Hmm.
So I would suggest, diversifying across multiple devices is always good. Um, I think it's good to never kind of tell people where you're kind of holding your devices, or like I wouldn't wear them around my neck. Like your recovery phrases, you definitely want to make sure that I put mine in a crypto steel, so I know that the paper is not gonna kind of dissolve or fade. So I always know that I have a way of getting access to my recovery phrase in the event that should I lose my Nano S or Nano X.
Hmm. Because there has been a story about a guy who had $100 million worth of Bitcoin written on paper or something, or a flash drive, and he got it into a landfill. Like it was lost in a landfill, and he had to dig up the landfill in order to recover, because otherwise it would have been, I don't know, I probably wouldn't be able to live with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can tell you a true story. I actually know somebody. What happened was, they had written their recovery phrase on their wall. Somebody that works from home.
Mm-hmm.
So just in their office, they just wrote it on the white wall, and their wife did not know what that was. In fact, the wife thought the husband was trying to teach the daughter just words. So like automobile, ring, and then when they were getting the house renovated, the wife had the painter just roll over the recovery phrase, and that was the end of it. So yeah, so you definitely want to think about ways to definitely protect your information, and I would say anybody who starts getting anything that's remotely a big balance of crypto,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think the right thing to do is definitely put it with a custodian, because they're insured. they have segregation of duties. They have ways to kind of safeguard your assets by adding, by even like reducing. So when we look at like the Ledger's enterprise solution, one thing that I would say is dramatically reduced is physical threat. So it's just like anybody today. If I have $1,000, then I might keep it at home. But if I have $100,000, I'll look for a bank. So I think it's important that people think about crypto very similar to how they treat fiat today. Is what is your risk tolerance and your risk preference? And I don't think too many people would keep like $100,000 around at home. But I would say in the crypto space, there's definitely a lot of people that still do that at the moment.
But when you're talking about custodians, do you mean exchanges or like specialized services that their focus is on storing crypto securely?
Yeah, so I'm talking about third-party custody and trust companies. So most banks will have a trust arm, and their goal and actually their responsibility legally is to hold your assets on your behalf. So today, a lot of people, put gold with custodians, and the custodians will hold like physical bricks of gold for them. And should anything go wrong, the custodian is liable for the assets, for repaying the assets, to the client. So I think that's and so that's why custody is something that I think is still relatively new in this space. A lot of exchanges are starting to scramble to set up their own custody business. We're seeing traditional banks looking to set up digital asset custody businesses. We're seeing a lot of trust companies in Hong Kong that have already set up a digital asset custody business. So I think the demand and the need is absolutely there, and people just need to kind of get comfortable with it. To me, I have a bit more of if I had to recommend, I always think it's good to have your assets maybe not sitting with like an exchange custodian, because as much as it's still independent, I think going with a traditional institution that has the experience of managing a custody is very important, and a lot of traditional banks do. And I think what we're going to see in the next 2 to 3 years is a lot of like traditional banks, tier 1 banks that we see globally, enter into this space and provide that service for clients.
I mean, it does make a lot of sense, since as the world is striving towards crypto and blockchain, adoption is going up. So banks start to catching on the hype and providing the services that people actually need. Now, let's talk about the market and the overall crypto sphere for a bit more. The most pressing question for everyone right now, I think, is the Libra issue. Everyone is talking about it. And do you think it's that much of a game changer as everyone thinks it is?
To me, I think the biggest value that Libra has brought to the blockchain crypto community is probably the media attention. You look at a month ago, blockchain, Bitcoin, Libra was one of the top searches in Google for a couple of weeks. So I think it's definitely kind of increased the awareness of what blockchain technology is and what cryptocurrencies are. But from a use case perspective, I think it's a great idea, but I think execution it's going to come down to execution. And I see a lot of hurdles that, the Libra Association is going to have. And I'm going to dissociate them from Facebook for a second. But first of all is, the Libra Association talks about like banking the unbanked. But to still bank these so-called unbanked individuals, there's going to be a KYC and AML process that's required. This is probably not going to be that different from how opening a bank account would be today. So the unbanked, I think, will still face a lot of these challenges and hurdles, unless what we're saying is that that process, that standard or that bar is going to be lowered, which I highly doubt. The other thing is, a lot of people talk about how banking the unbanked is really for like, third-party frontier developing markets. But one thing we need to think about is for a company like Facebook or for social media to be kind of adopted, openly across different countries like Facebook, that is still quite doable. But we're talking about something that is very much a currency. In fact, I look at Libra less so a cryptocurrency, because it's really a stable coin at the end of the day. So it's a form of like digital money. But I think one issue the Libra Association or Facebook's going to run into is, you're going to have a lot of central banks across the world that are going to be opposed to it, because having control of your currency is a very important thing to sometimes maintain kind of social balance or kind of economic stability, and to pass that all to association or a third party that you don't have control around. I can't see it happening. So when I look at what Libra may end up, if I had to guess 2 years from now, I could see Libra becoming more a form of payment, online payment that's being used in the US if it's adopted. So maybe it takes a run at against Apple Pay, but I wouldn't say that it's actually solving any problems that today, when I look at, for example, in China, you have Tencent WeChat or you have Alipay. These are extremely, extremely efficient payment systems that have very low transaction fees. So to me, I'm not sure. I think Libra, it's catchy, it's gimmicky, but once again, if they can implement and execute on it, kudos to them. But I think there's going to be a lot of challenges and hurdles before it can kind of catch fire and be mainstream.
So basically right now it's a PR tool and nothing more.
Yeah, I think for Facebook, to be honest, and this is my personal opinion, is when I look at Facebook's business, they have a lot of people kind of preference, personal data, and data is worth a lot. Facebook makes their money off advertising at the end of the day. Now, the part of the ecosystem that I think Facebook is really missing is the financial aspect. So what Libra allows them to do is actually get access to that last piece of the ecosystem, which I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I look at it as more of a bad thing. Sometimes you just don't want that much information owned by one company. And this is the thing, as much as Facebook owns 1% of the Libra Association, because it's going to be a consortium of 100 companies, how is the Libra token going to be transacted and distributed at the end of the day? It's probably going to be Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. So if I'm somebody that uses Tencent WeChat, WeChat today, when I pay my phone bill, and let's say it's $500, they take 50 cents off me. Okay, so at the end, this may end up just being another monetization vehicle of Facebook, and something where they're going to be able to monetize a lot of the financial data.
Okay, I mean, that does make a lot of sense. And when I see people, people have already started saying that Libra is dead on arrival and stuff like that. And I think Facebook's reputation also kind of plays into that, since Mark Zuckerberg and his company have been known for mishandling user data. And when people are talking about Libra as being a cryptocurrency, what is mostly associated in people's mind with being like a privacy tool, it sort of doesn't match, and it sounds kind of ironic, I think, that a company that has been known for mishandling user data is dipping into something that is mostly connected to privacy.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about the current state of the market right now? We've seen Bitcoin get over $13,000, I think, last month. And do you think it's a sign of a coming bull run, in your opinion, obviously?
Yeah, I would say I am bullish right now. It's actually very interesting, because if you look at historically, in let's say the stock market, right, the average bear market runs 14 months. And so it's interesting, because when you look back at BTC, for example, the crypto market, it was January 2018 when things started coming down. And then it was April 2nd when things started coming up. So it was approximately 14 months, which was quite accurate. So it was exactly a 14-month bear. And the typical bull run runs around, 36 months. So I think, as far as, I don't have a crystal ball, but when I look at kind of the trading patterns of Bitcoin, it's good to see kind of a lot of good support points along the pricing. So I think when you see things kind of consolidate at kind of the 9,000-10,000, that's always a good sign. It shows that there's kind of support and strength to maintain it at that level. And I don't want to put a blind number out there, but if I had to guess 3 years from now, I think Bitcoin's going to be a multiple of what it is today.
I mean, that's a sound prediction, because I talked with the council member of NEM, who is also a trader. Pedro Gutierrez is his name. He also said that as a trader, he thinks that we are right in the beginning of a bull run and things are going to look up really, really soon and in a very, very big scale. So that's about it. Thank you so much for your time, Ben. It's been really fun talking to you. Is there anything you would like to add to what we mentioned earlier?
I think just one last thing is maybe what I think cryptocurrency really brings to the market, which is going to be very interesting that will impact kind of financial markets, is a lot of people, if you look at traditional venture capital, it's a very long holding period. You make an investment and it may be 8 years or 10 years before you even see a return, right? What I think cryptocurrency does is it allows a new way, a new form of fundraising, but you have liquidity. So it'll be very interesting going forward because a lot more people are going to be able to invest in interesting, innovative projects, but also be able to cash out of these projects a lot earlier, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. I always look at liquidity as a double-edged sword because I think each and every one of us has at some point sold something maybe too early before. So I think that's something to really kind of look out for, which is a skill set that a lot of people actually historically have not had, because we've never had to look at investing in risky, high upside projects, but worry about having the ability to sell. But now, once you have that psychological side can really get to you, because you can invest in something that's really good today, but because the market all of a sudden goes on a 10-week bear market run, and all of a sudden you sell off something which before you couldn't sell it, so you just got to see it through. So it'll be interesting how the market kind of adjusts, I think, to that kind of new phenomenon that we have to face.
Really well said. Again, thank you so much for joining me today on Know the Coin. Again, I am Pauline. This has been our show, and today's guest has been Benjamin Soong, Managing Director, Head of APAC in Lger. And it's been a huge honor to talk to you, Ben. It's been really interesting. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Pauline. Take care.
Thank you.